It was a dangerous game, yet the thrill of the forbidden enveloped me, tightened my throat, and made me want more. I knew I was walking a thin line, but the temptation was too strong to resist. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing, while for us, it is fundamental. I couldn't say for sure when it all began. Maybe it had always been there, silent, hidden between the long days of work and the endless meetings. At first it was just a premonition, a light shadow that slipped between moments, like an imperceptible but real current of air. It was in his looks, too intense, too prolonged, as if he was looking for something inside me. And I, foolishly, let myself be carried away. My name is Elisa, an ordinary woman with a seemingly normal life, an affectionate husband, a welcoming home, a job that until then had given me satisfaction. I never imagined I would find myself in a similar situation, yet here I am, my hands shaking slightly as I confess the inexpressible. I cheated on my husband Gianluca with my boss, Ivan. Each day that passes is a whirlwind of guilt and desire, an abyss from which I cannot emerge. Ivan. His name burns on my lips. Charming, charismatic, impeccable in every gesture and every word. At the beginning, he was just a point of reference in the office, a presence that instilled security. But then, something changed. Maybe it happened on one of those long evenings of overtime, when the office emptied and only the two of us remained, enveloped in a dense atmosphere, charged with an invisible but overwhelming electricity. Every word, every gesture acquired a different, deeper, more dangerous meaning. One evening, while the silence of the office enveloped us, he stopped to observe my work, uttering words that struck me deeply. Hearing him recognize my worth, praise my dedication, had been like a light touch on bare skin. Something inside me had trembled. I felt discovered, vulnerable, and at the same time irresistibly attracted. From that moment on, every interaction with him had begun to be tinged with implications. Every opportunity to be alone became an unspoken opportunity, a game of glances that said more than 1,000 words. Meanwhile, at home, Gianluca continued to be the devoted husband he always was, attentive, present, and yet so predictable. Our daily life had transformed into a repetitive sequence of duties, responsibilities, and conversations that were always the same. We had forgotten to surprise ourselves, to desire ourselves. And Ivan had crept into that void, with his questions, his curiosity, the way he seemed to actually listen to every word I said. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive. That evening, after a long meeting that went on until late, he had asked me to stay a little longer. We were supposed to finish an urgent project, but the truth was different. Neither of us really wanted to leave. The ticking of the clock mixed with the accelerated beats of my heart. The air seemed denser, warmer. His scent, a blend of cologne and coffee, was everywhere, enveloping me in a spiral of temptation. When his hand touched mine, I felt out of breath for a moment. I looked up and found him a few centimeters away, his eyes filled with a desire held back for too long. There were no more barriers, there were no more thoughts, only the irresistible call of the forbidden. The heat of his breath on my skin, the tremor of his hands that urgently sought me, the taste of his lips that merged with mine. The whole world had vanished in that instant. It was just the two of us, united in a primordial impulse that admitted neither reason nor remorse. I couldn't say how we got to his office, or how our bodies found a way to belong together without words. I only know that every fiber of me burned with a desire I had never felt before. And since that night, nothing has been the same. Every meeting in the office, every quick exchange of glances, everything carried with it the weight of that unspeakable secret. We tried to be discreet, but the attraction was palpable, impossible to hide. I found myself longing for his messages, his whispers, the fleeting touches that inflamed my skin even through my clothes. Every moment with him was a sweet torment, a temptation I couldn't say no to. But with the pleasure also came guilt. Every evening, coming home, I met Gianluca's gaze, his sincere smile, his unconditional love. Every kiss, every hug, every word of affection became a boulder on my chest. I felt like a monster. I wasn't just cheating on him, I was cheating on myself too. Yet I couldn't stop. Ivan had become my obsession, my torment, my addiction. Every time I tried to close that door, he found a way to open it again. He said he couldn't do without me, that it was as if I had become a part of him that was impossible to let go of. And despite everything, I couldn't resist him. I knew this story had a price, but what it was, I still didn't understand. The sense of guilt grew inside me. It crept into every thought, into every breath, becoming an unbearable burden. Every lie whispered to Gianluca was one more step towards the abyss, a wall that rose between us. I felt lost, chained to a double life that was consuming me from the inside. One night, while he slept obliviously next to me, the tears began to fall silently, hotly, relentlessly. How could I have allowed myself to be dragged to that point? I wondered if it was really possible to love two people at the same time, or if it was just an illusion, an excuse to justify my weakness. I knew the moment of truth was approaching. I would have to choose, face the consequences. Maybe I would lose everything, or maybe I would finally be free. But continuing like this, in that limbo of desire and lies, was no longer possible. What would you do in my place? Confess everything, or continue to lie? Tell me in the comments. The days followed one another slowly, suffocatingly. Every morning I woke up with a heart heavy, with a void that I couldn't fill. Ivan was always there, tempting me, reminding me of what I could have had, and at the same time was destroying me. His touch, the kisses stolen in the office corridors, the thrill of transgression. They were the oxygen and poison of my existence. Every moment with him made me feel alive and at the same time guilty. Then, one day, that call came. Gianluca, with a voice that was trying to hide something, proposed dinner to me at our favorite restaurant. I felt a thrill go through me. Was it a gesture of love or suspicion? My heart split once again. I desperately wanted everything to go back to the way it was, yet Ivan's desire burned beneath my skin, ready to consume me. That evening I prepared carefully. I knew exactly what to wear, how to do my hair, what perfume to choose. Looking in the mirror, however, I saw a different woman. There was something dark, tormented in my eyes. Gianluca welcomed me with a smile, but in his looks I read shadows that hadn't been there before. The dinner took place in a subtle play of words and silences full of tension. Then, suddenly, his voice became lower, heavy. He understood. I felt my heart stop for a moment, my breath hitch in my chest. I could have told him everything at that moment, put an end to that agony, but fear paralyzed me. And yet another lie slipped from my lips. Gianluca nodded, but that silent doubt remained in his eyes, that shadow that would never leave his gaze again. When I returned home, a sense of momentary relief washed over me. Maybe I was just panicking unnecessarily. Maybe my guilt was just playing tricks on me. But the next day, Ivan's message broke that fragile illusion. He asked me to see him. He said it was important. I should have ignored it. I should have closed that door. But my fingers moved on the keyboard on their own. Tell me where. In the small bar hidden away from prying eyes, Ivan was waiting for me. His smile was the same as always, warm, dangerous, but something different shone in his eyes. Then, without warning, the words hit me like a punch. He had decided to leave his family. I felt my blood freeze in my veins. This wasn't what I wanted. I never thought it would get this far. And now everything changed. Ivan spoke firmly with that determination that had always made my legs tremble. He said he could no longer live a lie, that he could no longer deceive his wife, his children, and above all, he couldn't fool me anymore. He loved me and he wanted to know how I really felt. The world around me seemed blurry. What did I really want? That question had tormented me for months. Gianluca was my home, my safe haven, the man who had always loved me without reservations. Ivan was the fire, the passion, the forbidden. But now that line between right and wrong was becoming increasingly blurred. Ivan looked at me expectantly, hoping for an answer I didn't know how to give. My mind was a whirlwind of doubt and fear. I couldn't choose. Not like that. Not now. That night I returned home with a heavy heart. Gianluca slept next to me, unaware of the turmoil that was devouring my soul. And suddenly I realized that I couldn't lie anymore. I couldn't pretend anymore. I had lived too long suspended between two lives, a prisoner of a choice I never made. The next morning, with a determination I had never felt before, I decided to face the truth. Gianluca deserved to know. I deserved to be honest. I called him and asked him to meet me. A park, a neutral place, a place where we wouldn't feel trapped. When I saw him, my heart sank. There was an infinite sweetness in his eyes, a sweetness that hurt me even more. Before I could speak, he whispered that he knew. He had always known. The tears threatened to betray me, but I didn't stop. I had to tell him. I had to confess. I had betrayed his trust, and I didn't know if there would ever be a way to fix it. But at least for once, I would have told the truth. I looked into his eyes and felt a wave of emotions wash over me. They were full of sadness, but also of that understanding that made everything even more heartbreaking. Gianluca knew. He had always known it, perhaps. And now, with his painful calm, he was confronting me with an inevitable choice. I felt the weight of my guilt becoming unbearable. Oh, Ivan. Yes, it was him, but how it had started, how I had let it happen, was still a mystery I couldn't explain. Yet it had happened. I had betrayed the man who had always loved me, who had given me everything, and now he looked at me, waiting for me to decide our fate. Gianluca closed his eyes for a moment, as if trying to gather his strength. He loved me, I knew it. He always had. But he couldn't be the only one to keep up what we had built. I had to choose, really. And for the first time, the weight of my indecision dissolved. I already knew the answer, even if I hadn't yet admitted it even to myself. I looked at Gianluca and saw everything we had shared. The good moments, the difficult ones, the laughter, the tears. He was my refuge, my companion, the only one that really mattered. I couldn't let him go. The mere thought of losing him paralyzed my breathing. I had made a mistake. I had betrayed his trust, but I couldn't imagine my life without him. He studied me for a long time with that look that knew how to read inside me. Then, slowly, he took my hand. We both knew it wouldn't be easy. The pain, the doubt, the rift I had created between us. It would have taken time, sacrifice, strength. But if there was even a hope, I was willing to fight. The following weeks were a succession of mixed emotions. Every day brought with it a battle, a confrontation, a subtle pain that crept into our days. We went to a couples therapist, trying to rebuild what I had destroyed. Each session was like opening a still fresh wound, but it was necessary. The weight of my guilt was always present, but along with it also grew a thin, fragile but real hope. Ivan resigned a few weeks later. No heartbreaking goodbyes, no dramatic scenes, just a short, cold message that struck me more than I would have liked. I hope you are happy, Elisa. Find your path. And then he disappeared from my life, like a shadow dissolving into the night. I don't know if Gianluca and I will ever be able to go back to the way we were before. I don't know if our love will be strong enough to overcome anything, but I know that I'm willing to try, to fight for what we've built. Because love is not just passion. It is not just desire. Sometimes it's pain, it's compromise, it's a struggle against oneself. But if there was one thing I had learned in all of this, it was that real love is always worth living to the full. If you want to receive new videos of the series, write "I want the sequel" in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to receive a preview of future publications. Thank you.